Thanks very much, Isaac. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Dwight Lawrence, and I'm delighted to introduce today's webinar on the Lane 4 approach to creating high-performing teams. I'm here with my colleague, Aaron Barnes.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dwight.
And we're actually speaking from the Lane 4 webinar room in deepest Buckinghamshire. In fact, it'd be great to actually let us know via the chat box who you are and actually where you're calling from. That'd be great just to know that. So using that chat box to get you kicked off, that'd be excellent. You know, it's interesting. It's something subject that Aaron and I are very passionate about. And certainly our research and client experience tells us there's been an explosion in the use of teams by organizations over the last few years. In fact, I was recently talking to a manager I've been spending some work with, and when I asked him to describe the team he was part of, he looked a bit confused, and I realized that he wasn't sure whether I was talking about his project team, his virtual team, his Velcro team, his cross-functional team, his innovation team, or his quality team. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. Certainly, in my experience and my role here as account director and consultant at Lane 4 across many clients all over the world, I'm really noticing the complexity of work. Geographically, you know, the diversity of employee stakeholders, and of course, changing technology is all adding to this challenge around how to actually create and maintain high-performing teams. And the question we get consistently asked is, what do I need to pay attention to and actually take my team from just being merely functioning to being a highly consistent and performing team? And we're going to share some of those insights over the next 25 to 30 minutes. As I said, for myself, I've been at Lane 4 now for 2 years as a consultant. Prior to that, I spent many years leading leadership and organizational development teams in the media industry, in the investment banking sector, and also across professional services. So here at Lane 4, it's been great actually to work with Aaron on a number of projects. And as I said, we're delighted to be leading and talking with you today. Aaron.
Thank you very much, Dwight. Welcome again, everybody. Yes, Dwight and I joined the business at a similar time back in 2013, and we've seen our business here and our team change and develop and grow over time. So maybe some of those insights we can share with you. I joined Lane 4 as I'm really fascinated by what the approach is to high-performing teams and what enables high performance. I've witnessed in sport and in business how often the technical elements of performance will only get you so far. So my role here is part of the Lane 4 internal team focused on our relationship with Jaguar Land Rover, one of our clients, a partnership that currently covers 3 core areas. One, a skills academy of 50-plus skills courses, one-to-one performance coaching, and, yep, you guessed it, high-performing team development. Hence my presence here today. I can see some existing names and clients and people that I'm familiar with, and also some people that I'm not sure whether we've interacted as part of Lane 4 with you before. So welcome to you all. Just a little bit of a snapshot then for those that are less familiar with Lane 4, and we'll keep this bit brief. Lane 4, you can see the swimming pool lane there. We take our name from the lane that our MD, Adrian Morehouse, won his gold medal in breaststroke in the 1988 Seoul Olympics. A couple of our Lane 4 numbers that jump out. We very recently went through the 100 full-time employee mark, which we're very proud of, and that's as well as the 175 associates that we have globally. There's 10 Olympic medals, and there's 40 PhDs and psychology degrees, which make up the pedigree of some of our people, some which come from an elite performance background, some which come from a sport and business psychology background, and some that have led HR and L&D functions across the globe. Our product suite then. You can see on the right some of the areas that make up our product suite and the areas that we partner with organizations in. And today we're going to focus very much on the team development part of that. Dwight and I were speaking before, and in planning for this webinar, we recognize that there's vast amounts of experience from you that are listening into this, and it's humbling for us to be able to share some of our experience, Dwight, and insight. But as such as well, we're very keen to make this as interactive as we can, not only sharing Lane 4's insight and stance, but also hearing any comments, any questions from you as well. So to kick that off, we're very curious to hear. I'd like you to think of a team that you've been in and a team that you might consider to be the best team you've ever been in. Again, using the chat box, please share with us one characteristic that you felt made that the best team. It might be a word, it might be a short phrase. One characteristic. What made that team the best team? Fantastic. There's some great stuff coming through already here, Dwight. I can see some stuff around focus, some trust. We're not going to give too much of that away because there is a little surprise that we're going to try and pull off for you at the end of the webinar if we can. So please keep those coming through. What really made it a high-performing team? So the agenda, like I say, we do have an agenda, but at the same time, we're very happy to go where you want us to go in this time with any comments or questions that can be uncovered from your side. But three things that we thought it would be really great to get to. One is sharing our definition of a high-performing team, some practical advice, and looking at some business case studies as well as from the world of sports. And what are the practices and areas of focus that enable high levels of team performance? So to start with our research into high-performing teams, Dwight, now, as you know, there's 20 years of research that have gone into this, looking at different areas of elite performance, sports, different businesses, the arts, military. And what we've come up with is this model which critically it's not remedial. This is not about fixing teams and issues and challenges. This is about taking an existing functional team and making that team high-performing. And I think therein lies a uniqueness with this particular model. There's 5 key areas to it. You can see team process, team emotion, team psychological edge, team mind, and team leadership. And we're now just going to take a slightly deeper dive into those areas. Before we do, Dwight, we were having a conversation and I asked you the question, well, as part of the creation of this webinar, me, you, Joe, Isaac, what are we then? You listed off a whole heap of teams at the beginning of the webinar. What team are we?
Ask myself that kind of question every day, Aaron. It's interesting that it reminded me actually of a time I spent in Unilever when we were going through a time of rapid change and bringing together people from functions to actually solve a lot of challenges and take our performance a lot higher. And essentially what happened a lot was people come together for very specific initiatives and projects and then split and go back to their to their key areas of focus again. And the phrase that we took from some research we looked at was this idea of a Velcro team,
right?
That actually that meshes well, that bonds well, that links well, has a common purpose, but then goes back to the other teams it's focusing on.
Yeah,
Velcro
fantastic.
team.
Velcro team. I like that. Hashtag Velcro. Very good. And that leads us on to, I guess, taking a slightly deeper dive into the first area. So that first area is team leadership. Now, I've chosen this picture for a specific reason. And in team leadership, we focus on 3 main areas: high support and high challenge, and how critical it is that there is high elements of both to enable peak performance. Often you might see an environment created where there's high challenge, but there's not equally high support. And the research has shown us that it's that combination of the both that lead to high elements of performance. Excuse me. A compelling vision, something that really draws the team and the organization together, that engages people with the purpose and why we're here and why we get out of bed in the morning. One of vision that I can think of is Amazon's vision. We were talking about that earlier, being the most client-centric company in the world. Something that I can imagine people that work within that organization would feel very engaged around. So within team leadership, really important for there to be that compelling vision that draws everyone together. And shared leadership, so building on your notion of the Velcro team. In high-performing teams, leadership responsibility, we see it to be dynamic, and it shifts from formal leadership to informal leadership. There's a picture of GB cycling, a performance environment where there's no excuses. It's real high performance. There's attention to detail. You see adult conversations playing out between athletes and coaches, and backroom staff. And decisions and leadership is often shared. We know that quite often when you look at an event in the velodrome, that person that's leading at the front will change during the course of that event. So shared leadership, something that I think is absolutely critical to a high-performing team. And perhaps what's unique in our high-performing team model is the it looks not only at the team, but through our high-performing teams reports, which we'll share a little bit more with you later, it assesses the role of that leader in creating that high-performing team environment. So team leadership. Team emotion then. Now, some of you might be familiar with this picture. This is Charles Blondin. I heard about this story a few weeks ago when working with a team. And Charles Blondin in the 1850s was a famous French tightrope walker. And what he wanted to be is the first person to cross a tightrope stretched over the 1/4 of a mile that is Niagara Falls. He managed to do this, actually, often with different daring feats attached to it. So Charles crossed Niagara Falls once in a sack, could you believe, on stilts, on a bicycle, in the dark. He even crossed Niagara Falls with a stove and apparently cooking an omelette. Now, I struggle to cook an omelette just in the kitchen. I can imagine what I would be like if I was under the pressure that he was. On one occasion, he asked a lot of people that were watching for a participation. There was a large crowd that gathered and a buzz of excitement ran along both sides of the riverbank. The crowd oohed and they ahed as Blondin carefully walked one dangerous step after another, blindfolded and pushing a wheelbarrow across the tightrope. Upon reaching the other side, the crowd's applause was louder than the roar of the falls itself. Blondin suddenly stopped and he addressed his audience. He asked, "Do you believe I could carry a person across in this wheelbarrow?" The crowd enthusiastic shouted, "Yes, yes, Charles, you're the greatest tightrope walker the world has ever seen. You can do anything." "Okay," said Charles, "who's going to get in the wheelbarrow?" I wonder if you would have volunteered, Dwight, to get in the wheelbarrow. The story goes on that no one volunteered. There was deafening silence. No one wanted to be that person, that if you like, that first follower, the person that jumped in and showed their trust. What's the relevance here then? Well, mutual trust is something that I feel is absolutely critical to a high-performing team. Trust that's not only said, but trust that is shown. We talk about the trust equation: credibility, reliability, and intimacy, all divided by a level of self-interest. And I believe that high-performing teams take time out to build that level of trust.
Give me an example, Aaron, in your practice where you've seen something about trust or something about team engagement really come to life.
Yeah, so I mentioned at the front that I work as part of the Lane 4 team focused on our relationship with Jaguar Land Rover, a business that has experienced phenomenal growth in a short period of time. People are under a lot of pressure to deliver real high performance on a day-to-day basis. And that, as we know, can put pressure on the team and people at an individual base as well. A lot of the work that we've done partnering with Jaguar Land Rover in the team space has been to take a conversation away from it being just on a transactional level and move it more to transformational conversations such as, what are you proud of? What are you passionate about in and out of the business? So there might be an exercise on lifelines where people will suggest their life and their story, what has got them to today. So I think the deeper you can get the level of conversation, and critically the more intimacy that can be built, can be a place that everyone returns back to at levels of stress. And we've seen that really play out across the business. So that is team emotion.
Fantastic. Well, that leads nicely on to the next one around team mind, Aaron. And the reason I chose this picture, which is a newsroom, it actually reminds me a lot of when I spent 6 years working at BCIB, and I remember one month I really wanted to get to know the business I was working with as an L&D partner, and I started off at 5 a.m. one morning following a particular crew all the way through the day. What really amazed me was in the way they worked, in the way they shared information, in their sense of being able to adapt and bring in data to make decisions and to build on, if you like, the shared learning of the team. Was this actually, I didn't call it this then, but it was this notion of team mind, was the real ability to actually read new situations and through regular routines of reflection, building onto action, reflection, building onto action, and applying their knowledge to do even better this was a really important thing. So this area of team mind, I think, is one of the key things I've noticed where it really distinguishes teams that are merely okay to those that are actually consistently high performing.
Mm-hmm.
And that might lead into developing specific actions within one-to-one conversations, team meetings, actually having regular parts on the agenda to talk about what is it that the team know about each other.
Mm-hmm.
So team mind is a great and really powerful element of this to actually talk about. The next one I'll talk about is team process. And again, this is where the team pays attention to the way it stays efficient and effective in the way it communicates. It's a bit like thinking about the element of communication as a highly functioning nervous system, really being able to orchestrate smartly and nimbly its activities and also the way that information gets exchanged. The reason I've chosen this picture is many of you would have seen in the news, I think towards the end of last year, Camp Bastion in Afghanistan actually being closed down. And, whatever you think about the politics, in terms of the operation, 30,000 troops, a number of other dozens of people being allied to that group of troops. It was the largest British overseas military camp since World War II, actually, and existing just to be the logistics hub for operations in Helmand Province, one of the most fiercely defended Taliban strongholds in Afghanistan. And both in terms of the way that the speed and the effectiveness in terms of the way that the camp was constructed, but also thinking about the way that the British forces had to coordinate and communicate with other stakeholders, local government, local tribes. It was just an incredible example for me of communication and coordination done in a really effective way. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed again, while working with high-performing teams is often this being translated into meaningful and relevant team charters,
right?
Where everybody's really clear about what their role is, what it isn't, how they're going to interact, how they're going to inform each other, where their roles and boundaries are. But crucially, this is more than just something that just stays on the side of the wall. It's actually something that stays alive and active.
So tying a couple of the elements of the high-performing team framework together then, Dwight, how would that team charter be formulated? How would that come to life?
Well, that's a great question. And again, for me, this is one of those things that it's really powerful when, again, the leader has a vision and an idea about what he or she would like, but the power is in the co-creation of this. So I was working with the team a few weeks ago, and it started off with the leader actually just setting out the overall strategy, some of the aims and goals over the next 5 years, but as a team really working together, with energy, with focus, with challenging conversations, and putting together what for them was a meaningful way of being. Mm-hmm. So I think the power is in the co-creation often in these situations, Aaron.
Very good. There's a very quick story which is about Clive Woodward and the winning team of 2003, the Lions team, when he came into the room before the tournament. He said, "We are not leaving this room without a team charter. That is what we are here to do today." He put the pens down and walked out the room.
Yeah.
So that notion of it, if it starts with us, it starts with us co-creating this.
And it ties again to your idea about shared leadership, really, really powerful.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I think the final element, which I'm just going to talk about, is team psychological edge. This is really where a team understands and works with its resilience. It's really about how it stays tough and maintains momentum even under times of pressure. I put up a picture of a medical team there. My mother spent 38 years working in the NHS, and I know, the 24/7 pressures that she felt while working in teams, in some of the most crucial human situations. And I think, for me, this is possibly one of the most challenging areas actually to get right and pay attention to. And it's definitely about, a team having regular conversations, reminding itself of how to celebrate the achievements it's made, understanding what it means to be personally, individually, but also crucially resilient as a whole team as well. So team psychological edge, really, really important to focus on. It's worth talking about some of the ways we actually work with teams in a broader sense.
I think that would be useful to share. So we mentioned earlier the high-performing teams diagnostic. I think for us, there are two things that are absolutely critical when we work with our clients. One, that whatever we do has to shift performance.
Yeah.
So how do we measure that ROI? How do we measure that evaluation at the conclusion, but also critically during different stages of the program?
Yeah.
But also that it has to be based on some research, some rigor, some data. So this whole notion of data-driven development. So with that in mind, and you can see there on the screen a typical journey, although it's very much tailored to each organisation and the context. Bring to life for us, Dwight, how this has played out for you and teams you've worked with.
Yeah, so again, we can spend a lot more time on one-to-one conversations, really bringing these examples to life. I think for me, the crucial step is the very first part, is the really understanding the business through face-to-face meetings, through one-to-one calls with the team, through using, you said, the high-performing team diagnostic. Here's a snapshot of this over here. One of the great things about this is it enables the team to actually do some self-reporting and actually compare itself to. We've done this for over 5 years now with over 1,000 individuals, so that there's a really good norm base there already. So it gives an opportunity to actually do some measurement against external stakeholders as well as what the team wants itself. I've had some really interesting nuggets, actually, Aaron, in terms of this. I was working with one particular team, but we're a group of, it was a good team of engineering managers, actually. But some of the detail that came from the diagnostic was really crucial to help us form the rest of the program. And I remember with this particular group, when we asked the question around, what the team performs well, we had things like, we hit the task really well all the time. We're world-class firefighters. We cope with pressure with everything that's thrown at us. I think it's great for this to be a real start, but it's only a start. What happens then is a combination of experiential activity where we bring the sports psychology to life, and also we do practical exercises that make it really meaningful as well. So just here's an example of some of these things which would underpin the data-driven development. This is not just about having encouraging activities. So some of these things would involve top left-hand corner. It might be the shelves exercise, a great problem-solving exercise. Top right-hand corner, we might do something that focuses on trust and team emotion by doing wheelchair basketball activity. Bottom left-hand corner, again, working with our links with the Olympic movement. So a number of teams we've worked with have spent some time down at Team Bath working with the skeleton bob team. And then there's things like high ropes as well. So it's really important, I think, to make this relevant and meaningful. But these are great examples of things we can do to get underneath the surface as we build trust, as we build understanding, as we build real engagement.
And what I've noticed, Dwight, is that how quite closely these experiences are linked to different elements of that high-performing team framework.
Yeah.
So where in a session involving around psychological edge and the need to be resilient, it might be that there's some face-to-face classroom, not PowerPoint, that's not our way, as you know, but very much classroom-based discussions around that and where the team is at currently, using the data from the high-performing team survey, and then let's get out, let's work with the skeleton bob team, let's have discussions with them around resilience, let's actually have a go and feel about what are the coping strategies and ways that we can be resilient under pressure as a team, and taking that back to the workplace critically.
Absolutely. So, there's lots of things we can share, and I guess if we were to leave some top tips, there's a number of things we go through.
Yeah, there is. And so team emotion, we touched on team emotion, and there's more information that we have. Please reach out to us and keep the conversation going. We've got a white paper that we're very happy to share with you, which details some of this. But the top tip around team emotion for today is establishing that agreement and practices that really enables team members to know each other as people and promote high-quality feedback. So if you like, if team mind is knowing each other as colleagues and our preferences for how we work, then team emotion might be knowing each other as people. What's behind that job title? And really getting to know that and providing high-quality, specific feedback that will build trust.
Team process, making the communication and the coordination really meaningful. Great practical example, as I talked about before, is a chart that includes expectations and consequences. and really gets the team focused on how they will be with each other.
Team leadership then. The team leader sets the high performance expectation and provides the balance of vision, the support, and the challenge, which is co-created. It's a discussion, a continuous discussion amongst the team, and that leadership is shared.
Very good. So team mind, really, again, distinguishing factor that at very early stages of a team, or even going back to recontracting, that there's an environment created where team members feel comfortable, open, and willing to share information, share data, but have a rigorous process of review, both the ways of working and also the content in terms of what the team are working on.
Absolutely.
And again, team psychological edge, really having an edge, paying attention to generating that collective belief, but also ways to actually celebrate the team as it's on its journey and making sure they're performing to the highest possible levels. So
there's some top tips for you there. We have got some time for some questions and answers. We're kind of at the end now of what we plan in terms of content. Leaves us a few minutes. Please send some questions, some comments. I know some of you already have, which we'll get to, and we'll do our very best to share some insight around some of those questions. And while you're thinking and sending a few more, while Dwight, you're preparing to answer that first one that's come through, I'll let everybody know that they can keep in touch with us, and please do via our website, lane4performance.com, via Twitter, which is @lane4group, and via LinkedIn as well. We're very keen to share blogs, white papers, insights via Twitter, and not only from Lane4, but anything that you find interesting, please let us know, and we'll share it. So one question that's come through, which I'll read out, shall I? Thank you very much, Nigel, for sending this through. It says, how do you balance trust and challenge? For example, trust me to deliver versus challenge to ensure that you are delivering. What a great question.
It's a really good question, and I think that's there's something that I think particularly teams that we're working with that are undergoing change and ambiguity are facing a lot. One of the approaches we do consistently is to, as we're starting to build up a team charter, is really to have a conversation with the team about, what is it needs to be delivering on now, what is it needs to be delivering on in the future, establishing what is it that the team is about, and then as the teams really get to know each other, getting to know each other's strengths, maybe through working through lifelines, there begins to be language and detail and a focus around what the boundaries are, what the areas of focus are. Mm-hmm. I think, again, what distinguishes high-performing teams definitely is high-performance expectations, but also the team really feeling like their leader and other team members are there for them and are balancing out what their focus is.
We've got another one that's come through here. Please keep sending any more through. What's that one there say?
So here's something about how do I develop a team in a changing environment and changing circumstances.
Okay, that notion of ambiguity and uncertainty that is around many teams and many organizations at the moment.
Yeah.
It's another good question, so thanks for sending that through. The first thing that comes to mind for me is building a true level of engagement with the vision. We spoke about the vision and how that's co-created and how that sits in team leadership. But in times of change, what we know through William Bridges' work on change and transition, it's how can people have something that they go back to in times of difficulty, in times of strange. So everything else might be changing around us, but these are the three things that is our vision, that is our reason for being, that we start with and we end with and we keep to. And I guess on the engagement side, we often talk about understand, care, and can. So understand is when someone has engagement at a very rational level. They know it's happening. Care is now leading more towards the emotive level of engagement, which I think is critical, the hearts and minds, and then the behavioral side, the can, helping people to be enabled to do something with and contribute to. So understand, care, can, I would say, is critical in an uncertain environment to building true levels of engagement.
Very good.
There are a couple of questions that we haven't yet been able to get to. We do apologize for that, and we will respond accordingly to you for those. Just a couple of last bits to leave you with. You'll receive a feedback survey shortly. We'd really love to hear from you. Dwight and I would really love to hear how this has landed and if you've liked what you've heard. Please reach out and keep in contact, and we do have a white paper that we'll send to you as well. Before you log off, and I know you're all very busy, we did promise you a little gift to end with. So if Isaac, if you're still there, and we can, the big reveal. So we asked you at the very beginning, what is a characteristic of a high-performing team for you when you think back to teams you've been part of? And this is some of the things that came out. It's very interesting, Dwight, isn't it? Some of the elements that we've already talked through today. So you've helped us to navigate through this webinar, and you've really contributed. And we'll share a copy of this Wordle for you as well, some of the elements that came out. We'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for joining. Dwight, great working with you once again.
Absolutely. Great to connect up with you all virtually, and look forward to being in touch in some way in the future.
All the very best.